Seiko can claim countless icons over its long history, with one on the short list being the Speedtimer reference 6139. These watches were trailblazers for being among the first automatic chronographs in the world, while also having a variant within the reference family, the -6002, that became known for its connection to space. The unconventional looks of a yellow dial and Pepsi bezel would become known by collectors as the Pogue, and for years, the best chance of getting to own one was to dig deep to find a vintage example. Well, Seiko just introduced one of their Speedtimer solar quartz chronographs in the Pogue colorway, and today we give it a closer look. So for those not privy to why the Pogue is beloved, we look back 50 years to the 6139-6002. The original Speedtimer was the first automatic chronograph in space, gaining its nickname from William Pogue, who wore his personal Seiko in 1973 on board NASA's Skylab in addition to his official issue Speedmaster. Although there are some debates of what came first, it cannot be disputed that Seiko was responsible for creating at least one of the first automatic wrist chronographs in the world in 1969, alongside Zenith, Breitling, Hamilton, and Heuer. While the current Pogue Speedtimer SSC947 is not going to be the same as the original automatic version, the reason why this is a big deal is that this new solar Speedtimer does resurrect one of Seiko's most iconic colorways after many years of dormancy. So right off the bat, the new Speedtimer utilizes a vastly different case shape than its namesake. Where the original had a tonneau-shaped case with a pronounced inward curve at the lugs, the modern Speedtimer displays a more conventional case shape being used by other contemporary Speedtimers. The modern solar Speedtimers can be seen sporting different cases, with the version here employing the service of the larger 41.4mm option. However, I will put the word larger in italics here, as these pieces were nowhere near the dimension. The other common case in the Speedtimer range is the 39mm option of the SSC813, which measures 39mm in diameter and has a lug-to-lug of 45.5mm. By contrast, the Pogue does have a wider diameter, but the case height of 13mm and a lug-to-lug measurement of 45.9mm makes this watch wear similar to a 40mm case on wrist, if not even slightly smaller, making these a great candidate for nearly everyone except for those at the extremes of wrist sizes. Finishing is predominantly brush, with larger hits of polishing appearing on the case sides, apart from the brushed tops of the pushers and the push-pull crown. As we transition to the lugs, we are greeted with an odd-numbered lug width of 21mm that holds a brushed 3-link bracelet into place, tapering mildly down to a 2-button sign clasp. The bracelet, which is adjusted with a pin and collar system, forgoes any use of half links and offers only 2 points of micro adjustment within the clasp, which could make finding a perfect fit a challenge for some. Now, Seiko typically leaves a lot to be desired for their bracelets under $1,000 especially. That said, this bracelet is perfectly adequate, and I will most likely keep it paired with this configuration given its versatile upside of working well with the vibrant colors. A curved sapphire crystal protects the dial and features anti-reflective coating on the underside, and instead of a ceramic or sapphire, the red and blue Pepsi tachometer bezel insert is rendered in a vintage correct aluminum, an aesthetic choice that reinforces the retro vibe. Water resistance is rated to 100 meters, pretty stellar for a chronograph without a screw down crown or pushers, but I wouldn't be too eager to test out the pushers underwater, as accidentally pressing a pusher when submerged in water typically doesn't lead to anything positive. Now, part of the charm of a piece like this is how unorthodox the colorway is, with this theme being championed primarily by the dial. The blazing sunray matches the most iconic version of the earliest Pogues, and the contemporary rendition doesn't disappoint. It retains the brightest golden yellow hue of the vintage version, as well as its radiant sunray finish, but there are significant differences to point out. First on the list are the black subdials, with this version in a triple register format as opposed to the gold subdial above 6 of the original model. The black colorway doesn't detract significantly and was chosen with a functional purpose, since the subdials are slightly translucent to allow the solar capacitor to charge the quartz movement. Functionally, the Speedtimer features a 24-hour display at 3, a display that I will add is not tied to the chronograph functions, instead the central time. Then a 60-minute totalizer on the 6 o'clock subdial that doubles as a clever power reserve indicator when the chronograph is not in use. And finally, you have your running 60-second subdial at 9. The center chronograph hand pops with its red and black coloring, and the faceted silver hour and minute hands feature a sort of blunt-tip sword profile, and are filled with Seiko's Lumibright as well as the applied silver hour indices, all shining well in practice. The 415 date window steers clear of the subdials, but fans of symmetry may not be in love with this look, especially given the need for the disc to sit deeper underneath the dial than usual because of the solar charging. While the original Pogue had an inner rotating bezel, there's no such party trick here, but the black rehaut does call back to a rare Pogue variant known as the Aussie Pogue that featured a black chapter ring. Perhaps the biggest change you are getting with this new version of the Pogue is that instead of a mechanical column wheel chronograph of the original, we have the V192 solar quartz caliber under the hood. Given the current positioning of mechanical chronographs around the industry and with the brand, Seiko opted to go the route of solar quartz, I would imagine for a variety of reasons. Number one, to make the watch more attainable. Number two, to reduce the cost of ownership and service that comes with the mechanical chronograph. And three, deliver a package that is optimized for everyday durability and accuracy. This caliber does offer solid performance in that department of accuracy of plus or minus 15 seconds per month. It does feature stop seconds and boasts 6 months of power reserve on a full charge. Further, the reasonably steady sweep of the chronograph seconds delivers on one of the most beloved visual cues of a mechanical watch while delivering quartz upsides elsewhere. For those concerned about the alignment on the hands, I do want to mention this point. The position of both the central chronograph seconds hand as well as the 60-minute subdial hand can both be finely regulated by pulling the crown to the farthest position and then holding the 2 o'clock pusher to highlight what hand you are adjusting. And you can cycle back and forth by holding that 2 o'clock pusher. Once you identify what hand you want to adjust, you can use the 4 o'clock pusher to make small incremental adjustments when necessary. So now with the review portion of the video out of the way, let's close with some thoughts here about what I think of this release. So as many of you know, Seiko has one of the most passionate followings of any brand in watches, with fervor of enthusiasm spanning generations being built off of legends like the Pogue. But with passion can come a mix of opinions, a story that I'm sure will be present with the release of a watch like this. On one hand, if you want to get technical, this is not exactly a Pogue, given the different movement, case, and the dial layout, which will leave some purists disappointed with this release. One of the existing questions to follow up with that idea is why not make it mechanical? Although there is a way to make this a mechanical offering and something I wouldn't be surprised if we see happen in the future, I think enthusiasts would not be thrilled with what would come with only going that direction, as the common calibers Seiko utilizes for mechanical chronograph offerings nowadays are the 8R48 or the 8R46, movements that are housed within the mechanical speed timers and have starting prices around $2,500, going up from there while also being thicker and larger generally with their diameter. Of all the options presented, the Pogue and a speed timer solar quartz package makes the most sense and probably connects with more enthusiasts by making it less expensive to acquire and own over time. And that even includes comparing it to vintage models that, to find a stellar example of, will cost well over $1,000. You can find some others under $1,000, but if you want to get a prime example, you're going to be spending some good chunk of change. And that's also not including the hundreds of dollars that it might cost for a full service, which usually involves getting new parts that are more tricky to come across nowadays. To save in pricing comes at the cost of not perfectly mirroring the original. Yet since Seiko introduced the speed timers in 2022 in the solar quartz form, they have been on a short list of some of the most beloved chronographs for under $1,000. And with this new Pogue, the premise only continues with a design that no question is pretty weird, but is lovably unmistakable. But all right, guys, that is my breakdown of the new Seiko Pogue. And I'll put the Pogue in quotes because, as I mentioned, it's not exactly a perfect one-to-one of these vintage examples. But what are your thoughts on this new release from Seiko? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Leave some comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Really do appreciate that as well, as it does help out the channel. Also check out TeddyBaldestar.com, full authorized dealer of over 30 brands, including Seiko. Every watch from TeddyBaldestar.com comes with a full factory warranty, quick and fast fulfillment, and dedicated customer support. And every watch that you purchase from our website helps fund future productions on this channel, allows us to keep doing what we're doing here, and we love what we do. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.